on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, along with Kristen. This is FLIX Fix, and like I usually say in these videos, Kristen, it's been a while.
Yes, it has. Can't even tell you all the stuff that happened that we were like, yeah, we're just not doing it this time.
Maybe next week. And, like, cards on the table, I got a busy weekend next weekend, so there's definitely not going to be a FLIX Fix next weekend. This is kind of going to be a hodgepodge, a little bit, because we never really wrapped up on Loki. They've just started What If, and I'm going to be selfish for a second and start it off with the fact that I actually get to go to the theater again, and I've been to the theater for the past 5 weekends in a row.
Hooray!
I know you haven't seen...
Enjoy it while you can, until we have to close everything again, because people are more... I'm sorry, never mind, I won't talk about politics. Kristen had a bad day. Kristen had a rough day at work, guys. I won't go into it, but...
Funny thing is about the COVID thing, and I'm not going to jump on it either, is, like, I've got equal rants on people on both sides now. Like, I think... I already hated everybody, and the whole COVID era just makes me stop hiding it as much. But no, 5 weeks in a row, Black Widow, which was really good, the sequel to Escape Room, which was ridiculous. The sequel to Escape Room was somebody wanted to make a PG version of Saw, and it's hilarious. The G.I. Joe movie was okay if you're somebody that really likes...
Are you talking about the Snake Eyes?
Yes.
One?
Yes.
I didn't know that came out yet, but I have seen the trailers for it randomly.
If you're somebody that's really into, like, really intricate...
G.I. Joe lore.
And see, I'm not. But I enjoyed it for what it was, because it's an origin story, so you didn't really have to have seen the other ones anyway. But if you're somebody who's, like, not so much hung up on story and appreciates a really good fight scene, a really good action thing, car chase scenes that are done a bit differently, fight scenes that are done a bit differently, it is good for that. It doesn't set the world on fire, for sure. But then last weekend and this weekend, I got a double dose of John Cena, because I saw The Suicide Squad and Fast 9.
Oh, we watched The Suicide Squad as well this weekend.
All right, cool. Let's take a couple of seconds and talk about how ridiculously James Gunn second Suicide Squad was.
So we're watching Guardians, but rated R with DC characters.
I was literally going to say this was all the blood and swearing that has been built up in James Gunn's system doing the 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And seeing John...
It was good. It was much better than the other one. I mean, that's a low bar for me.
And see, the thing is, I like the first one.
Although I feel like they were like... I feel like with Margot Robbie, they were like, well, I mean, she was one of the only good things about the other one, so we have to have her. And, like, half the time, the shit she's doing has nothing really to do with what Idris Elba and anybody else is doing.
And Margot Robbie's just good as the Harley Quinn character. Like, she just is.
She is great, but it was just kind of funny that, like, she is not with the main group for 2/3 of the movie.
No, absolutely not. I love Sylvester Stallone voicing King Shark. Mm-hmm. That was awesome. Not going to give too much away, but they say on all the posters, don't get too attached. That's definitely true. As a wrestling fan,
I mean, anybody who thought about Suicide Squad and was like, wow, there's a lot of names in here.
Yeah.
Come on, you knew that a lot of them were going to die.
And a lot of the names were, like, people that have crossed over from Guardians, too. Like, the crossover between Guardians and Suicide Squad is ridiculous. It's like James Gunn just brought his friends over to his next project. He's the Adam Sandler of producers.
Mm-hmm.
John Cena being the bad guy and John Cena swearing are always going to be hilarious to me.
Well, what's funny is that I feel like in it, John Cena was John Cena, but like taken to its most ridiculous conclusion.
Yeah. John Cena as like the Captain America-ish type character, but also being a dick, mirroring John Cena always being the good guy in wrestling that everybody hated. The Weasel was good. I thought the Weasel was pretty good. All the comedy.
A lot of the people in the trailer, just spoiler, a lot of people that you see in the trailer don't get attached.
A lot of people die. Like, they've even said that. Like, they've made it part of the marketing. Like, I mean, look at the key characters, look at the key actors for the most part. You can pretty much tell who makes it and who doesn't. I will say there is a post-credit scene, so hang out for the credits. Once we, I don't think there's anything else to say other than it's a shit ton of fun. It's intentionally super vulgar. It's really good. Margot Robbie's great. I'm a huge fan of Viola Davis, so seeing her come back as the Amanda Waller character.
She is the epitome of Amanda Waller.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, you talk about, like, John Cena's there to be John Cena. Like, I was first exposed to Viola Davis in How to Get Away with Murder, and she's still playing her Annalise Keating character from that. Like, it's just absolutely cold, absolutely whatever. The people that are working with her...
essentially she's been playing Amanda Waller for years.
Yeah, pretty much. I do think the way they've sort of changed up her, like, home base team, like the people that are working with her in the office, is a little different. I don't know what else we can say that's not spoilery, but go see it.
If you say too much, it does get into spoilers.
Yeah.
I know that sounds weird, but it really does.
And I mean, I'm gonna repeat what I said to you a second ago.
And I don't mean spoilers as in like the end of the movie. I mean first 10 minutes spoilers.
Oh yeah, within the first handful of minutes, you are punched in the face with this is what kind of movie this is, and I'm kind of there for that. I really am.
This one I enjoyed. This one, it wasn't trying to be serious.
Yeah.
The plot line made more sense.
I think it's funny because it's not serious, which makes the characters that are like John Cena's character, from his point of view, is very serious, but that makes that funny.
There's a line, I won't go too much into it. It's Idris Elba and John Cena, and Viola Davis is taking Idris Elba, and he's like, "Here, I'm going to show you your team. Everybody's been selected for their very unique set of skills."
Oh God, yeah.
So Idris Elba is described as a man that can turn anything into a weapon. He's been trained in the art of killing from a very young age by his father and something else.
Basically, it's the mirror image description that John Cena gets.
Yes, and he's like, the fuck? And like Idris Elba is like, I thought you said everybody had a unique set of skills.
He's like, yeah.
And then they continuously argue about like who's better at
better ways to kill people and stuff. They do
being that character, which
very much
honest, in Marvel and DC especially, there's a lot of that character where they're like, my superpower is I'm really good at shooting shit.
But they do have a moment. I'm not going to give too much away, but if people remember back in the Lord of the Rings, where what's his name, the elf and the dwarf are sort of like comparing notes on like how many people they've killed, they do a really gory, violent version of that between Idris Elba and John Cena that works.
It's a little like, I mean, to me, it screamed the scene with Yondu and Rocket in the second Guardians.
Yeah.
Where they're killing everybody on they're killing all the Ravagers. It's like more gory than that, but
and see, the thing
a
is,
level of that
because that's Michael Rourke, and he's in Guardians and he's in this, and cover your ears if you haven't seen F9 because he's in that as well. I still see Merle from what's it called? Walking Dead. Any move, I don't care how much blue paint you put on him. I don't care about the fin on the top of his head. I don't care about the whistle thing. I don't care that like he was all like whited out with the blonde wig and whatever in this. I look at him, I see Merle. It's why I'm so ecstatic about the rumors that Norman Reedus might be the new Ghost Rider. I'm a big fan of Norman Reedus.
All right, that's all we could. I feel like that's all we could say about Suicide Squad. That won't.
Yeah, and I'll round it out by saying that I saw Fast 9 this weekend, and it is as ridiculous as anybody has told you it is.
It went from a franchise about, like, we all race cars to a franchise where, like, we're
driving cars in space.
It's like not GTA. It's like if you've played Saints Row, but with cars, where it's just, like, ridiculous levels of...
It's so funny because around like 2 or 3 when they started driving like tanks or whatever, like, and they were racing their tanks against like their road vehicles, people always made the comparison of, you know what, this series is getting so stupid, one day they're just going to be driving cars in space, and, well, da-da-da-da-da, F9.
It's just like, at some point you're like, when did these people that were like street racers in LA become like secret agents?
And start driving space cars.
Anyways,
And
I didn't see it, but I can imagine what it is.
oh yeah, no, like you can't
Just
spoil
based
anything
on
if you.
just based on its level of ridiculousness that's been happening for years.
Oh no, like nothing you've seen in any other Fast movie and nothing you've seen in the trailer for this movie will prepare you for how ridiculous this movie is. Me, I love it because I'm just like, I hear the CinemaSins ding go off in the back of my head where it's like, okay, physics, we'll see you later. But it is a good time. It is absolutely ridiculous, but it is a good time. So, as you can tell, very, very happy up here to have our theaters back going 5 weekends in a row. But it doesn't mean we don't have TV stuff to talk about. So, quickly, because we didn't do it at the time, final thoughts on Loki. Or Loki Season 1, I should say.
Loki Season 1. So we've kind of introduced the beginnings of the multiverse and everything. I do pose a question for you
Sure.
to see if you can maybe answer this. So at the end, when he who lived, or he who remains, is talking to Sylvie about, so you can either like take over what I'm doing, and then I can finally fuck off and die and not be doing this anymore, or you can kill me and I'm just gonna end up back here again, kind of thing.
Those are not. So, that's not an either or option. That's not a properly. Okay, I can't wrap my look. When we get into the multiverse stuff, it's going to get into those situations where I can't really describe what I mean very well. But if you're saying one option is kill me, and one option is, you know, just take over what I do and I'll go fuck off. If she kills him, doesn't he just get reincarnated again and she'll have to make that decision again?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, hang on, let me finish my question.
Okay.
Let me finish my question.
I thought that was the question, sorry.
No, that's not the question. Is this a thing where, so he says this has happened like before.
Yeah.
So is essentially time a loop? Is that what he's describing?
I think they're saying that. I think that's the big...
time is a loop. What happens is, at the beginning, there's him, or a version of him, who finds out there's a multiverse. He meets other versions of him. It's cool for a while, and then they all start to fight. One universe with him in it survives. He decides, this is going to be the main timeline. And that's how it is until somebody comes and kills him.
Well, that was one of the big reveals, and everybody, and I know I say this all the time, but especially right now, because I don't read the comics, and this is all really theoretical stuff, so please put your ideas and theories and whatnot down in the box below. Through the first season, the whole thing is they took all, like, the undesirable people, and they were dumping them on this one, like basically garbage pile part
at the end of the universe.
At the end of the timeline, though. But the thing is, I think the big reveal is, like, everything that's happened, and has already happened, and will happen again is a loop. If that's the case, there is no end of the timeline. Like, they always talk about, like, oh, we're all going to be rewarded at the end of time. And if the grand reveal is that time is a loop, then everything's useless because there is no end of the timeline. So it really does bring up the point, to me anyways, of where was that spot where they were dropping all the variant Lokis, because apparently it was the end of time. But if you follow it to the end, and even you see it when they're at, I think we're supposed to say he's like He Who Remains or Kang the Conqueror or whoever. You see the timeline.
I think
literally
Kang the Conqueror is a variant of He Who Remains.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying, like, at various times he was called.
Oh, I have another thing that I want to talk about.
Sure,
about
go for
it, but continue.
I was just saying, because you see the visual, like, he exists outside of time, like the TVA apparently does, right? So when he's sitting in his little, like, rock castle, like, floating in the middle outside of time, which kind of made me think of Thanos' like rock throne just like floating
Oh,
around in
hang
space.
on, just a side tangent.
Sure.
Did you get jump scared when Miss Minutes popped up out of nowhere? It's like quiet.
Oh, when they first get to the castle?
Yes.
No.
I did get jump scared a little bit.
I
was like, oh, what the fuck?
I watch way too much fucked up shit that you would probably never watch for the purposes of this podcast to be jump scared by little animated.
I was, and she's horrifying. Anyways, continue.
No, but it was one of those things, like anytime there's a time travel movie, like even if you go back to like, Back to the Future, you go back to whatever time movie you want, and there's always ways that you can nitpick because you cannot do a time travel story perfectly. Like,
yeah.
It's a paradox eventually, right? But I'm thinking while he's on his like castle, which exists on a rock outside of time, and they pull back, and you see the what do they call it? The sacred timeline is just a ring around his castle. So he's just constantly watching the whole history of existence on a loop. But it brings me back to the point of if it's
so does that mean that there is a portion where whoever comes and like kills him doesn't kill him, instead fucks off, and they deal with the timeline, and it still always ends up?
I have no idea, because my question is this, right? Is they dumped all the variant Lokis at this dumpster place that was basically like the end of time in tight air quotes, right? And only from there could they get to him. So if that place at the end of time, which I'm just going to call the dump, because they didn't describe it really any better. If the dump was the key to getting to his castle, which exists outside of time, then to my theory, then the dump exists outside of time and is not, in fact, the end of the timeline. So where is the dump? I know that doesn't matter. It won't matter going forward, but that's the kind of thing that sticks out in my head.
Okay, second question that I've seen floating around. Have you seen the talk amongst all of the Marvel community of the moment when they are talking to He Who Remains, and he's talking, and he all of a sudden kind of peers over and goes, we've what is it? We've hit the point of no return or something like that. He's talking about like when timelines start to breach and they hit like a point where it's like, oh fuck.
Oh, because we've reached the point of like he doesn't know whether she's going to accept or not.
Yes.
So
okay. So he does that. So
yeah.
So he says that, and that's before her and Loki start fighting. Apparently, if you play the last episode of that and the last episode of Wanda and Vision, WandaVision, the moment where she sort of becomes the Scarlet Witch syncs up, hypothetically, I haven't done the research, I've only read the articles about other people that have done the research.
Right.
Syncs up perfectly with like him looking over, and then she becomes Scarlet Witch, and he says like we've hit the point of no return. And then like when she starts sucking all the magic out, and the other witch, what's her name? Agatha all like,
along
collapses. Yeah, that's when like there's something on his desk that's like usually constantly spinning, and it like falls over, and it like freaks him out.
See, now that's the kind of coincidence.
Supposedly those sync up perfectly, and a bunch of what I've read, all the Disney people are like, yeah, that's fucking weird that happened. Like, we didn't mean for that to happen. Like, what?
You're protesting too much.
Probability. What's the probability of that doing that perfectly? Or is it just well, that happened, and that just happened to work out that way?
See, here's where I just turn into an asshole, because if they did do that, and if that is true, and if that is a way of them showing that like Loki and WandaVision all happen at the same time and all these cosmic events are lining up perfectly, that is a really cool story to tell. That is a really cool, because we know Marvel is the detail company, right?
And I think that's why people are looking into it. I think that's why
right.
It's such a big, like, is this a fucking thing? Like, it's at, like, I don't know, however many minutes and 22 seconds exactly.
See, but here's the thing, though. If they do that, and that is the type of thing that Marvel would do, and it unifies everything, and it reminds us that all the universes from all the different shows are connected, I will love that, because that's a really cool storytelling technique. But at the same time, it is absolutely flawed. Because even though Wanda was existing sort of in her own world, her world existed on a small part of Earth in our actual reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So her actions took place at a specific point in time, whereas their conversation happened at his, like, time castle thing, which exists outside of time. So if you're talking about the bending of time itself, they can't happen at the same time because the conversation that they're having doesn't happen at a particular time. It happens outside time. So
I kind of want to believe that it was on purpose, just because I the fact that
it probably is. It probably is, and it's brilliant, and it's very, very cool storytelling, and I'm sure they'll all have something to do with each other.
Or do you think, and it could be, I think it would be really a weird coincidence if that happened, that it's just like, do you think that, like, it happened like that, and I was like, and everybody's like, oh, this is like a thing that, like, means something, blah, blah, blah.
And
like,
now they'll make it a thing?
Like, and the editors are like, oh, fuck, I guess it worked out really well. I mean, we could make it a thing. Like, it was totally accidental, just happened, one in a million
Well, they have done
that
things
it, like,
before
happened like that.
They have come...
Like, fucking, yeah, I guess it's a thing. Yeah, because we're fucking brilliant.
No, they have done stuff like that before, admittedly. Like, they came along, and what was it, there's only one example that I can think of, and basically, in one of the early Iron Man movies where they show the Stark Expo, and they show, like, the little kid with the Iron Man helmet on, and he, like, points his fake laser at, I think it's Obadiah Stane.
Yeah.
But it's in the middle of the Stark Expo. They went ahead and canonized the theory that kid was, like, super young Peter Parker, and that he was a fan of Iron Man for that long. And that's what part of, like, what inspired him to be a superhero. So they have done things in the past where the fans have just like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if this was this? And they're like, yeah, that's
sure.
definitely a cool thing. Hey, you didn't catch that. Most people don't catch that. You caught that. Good for you. And you know what? As I say, I hope it is a thing, and, like, from a storytelling point of view, I think that's a very cool thing to sync it up, to literally sync it up on the shows, just to say later on, hey, those two things happened at the same time. My only thing about that is if you're trying to tell us that this guy exists outside of time, he's not part of the timeline, so it happened at the same time doesn't work. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I want to talk about characters, though, for a little bit before we go on. Tom Hiddleston basically having to go back to zero with his character and morph Loki into a good guy again.
Mm-hmm.
Because we started out with, like, asshole Loki from, like, the first Avengers movie, and we basically fast-tracked making him a good guy again.
Yeah, that's right, because since he was a different Loki than the one we found in Thor Ragnarok, and then at the end of the first, which one? Infinity Wars.
And he was dead. Like, he had to watch on screen the way the rest of his life unfolded, like his mom dying.
How it was supposed to.
How it was supposed to unfold, yeah, because, like, it's kind of a surreal thing, like, watching the rest of your life unfold instead of experiencing it, but, like, your entire planet gets destroyed, your people have to relocate to another planet, your mother gets killed, your dad dies, your dad sits there with you and your brother right before he dies and tells you that you have a sister, and then she almost fucks everything up, and then you die yourself trying to save the world. Like, we had to, all that work that was done in all those movies to take him from, like, I mean, lovable bad guy, but bad guy, to whatever we considered him at the beginning of Infinity War, to go back to the first Avengers movie and have to, like, recreate that character again, would have been really hard, because you have to devolve, like, if you're Tom Hiddleston, you have to devolve your character back to, like, what was it, 2012?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really, and I can't think of her name right now, because I haven't done any research before we sat here to record, the girl that plays Sylvie.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to find another Tom Hiddleston to play another Loki, but she did pretty fucking good. Mm-hmm. I really like her. I hope she's around for a bit. Like, if she pops up in a movie, it's not going to... It's not going to hurt my feelings.
I wonder what. Yeah, because I mean, the whole thing is that like they were like in love with each other, and
That was going to be my next point. It is very, very Loki. It is very, very like Loki's kind of ego that if he's going to fall in love with somebody, that somebody would be himself.
And then like their whole thing is like, I assume that like after this, if they get back, if they're get together again, that they aren't going to be together again in this capacity, because the whole point of their little fight is that he can't be trusted and she can't trust.
Yeah.
And it's a thing that they'll never get past.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you look around in the real world, there's absolutely no examples of people in super toxic relationships like that. Okay, come on. Gods have daddy issues, too.
Well, and then she, like, threw him back. Whatever. Anyways,
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Well, the thing is, like, remember the one, even though he was trying to maintain one timeline, he's like, I will make an exception. We will create a reality where both of you guys can exist, and I'll give you the life wherever you want. So, definitely the guy making the rules is also playing fast and loose with the rules. I was kind of, and it was played off for comedy and charisma and all that sort of thing. I was about 90% sure that the reveal of the person behind everything was going to be Kang the Conqueror, which was a bummer for me, because it's not a character that I know anything about. I had my preference as to what I wanted it to be that it never ended up being. I'll get to that in a second. But, like, if this is the guy, because you got to figure the guy that is in charge of the entire timeline of existence is way stronger than, you know, your typical, like, Thanos type character who just exists in the universe and tries to take it over, right? I wanted it to be something big and scary and grandiose, and instead he was just like this chillin' guy.
He's just like a dude.
He's just like a dude, and he's just like looking over his shoulder, keeping an eye on the fucking timeline. I couldn't drive. I mean, it's a storytelling decision, and I get it. And you want to subvert expectations and all that sort of thing. I kind of applaud them for that, but at the same time, it didn't work for me, especially for a character that I know nothing about.
Well, and apparently supposedly the statue at the end, where the three Time Lord, they're
Timekeepers?
not Timekeepers. I keep calling them Time Lords because I fucking watch
Doctor Who.
Doctor Who.
I gotta give that a shot someday.
Is replaced with just him, and that supposedly is going to be Kang the Conqueror. And I think he's supposed to be the villain in the Fantastic
Four, yeah.
That they finally can do a Marvel movie of, and maybe we'll finally have a Fantastic Four movie that doesn't suck.
Oh, they're definitely doing it. It's already in the schedule. Like, it's already...
Well, no, there's not always... I mean, they're definitely doing it. There's not always a guarantee that it won't be the Fantastic Four movie that doesn't suck.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I mean, they finally came along and gave us a good Spider-Man, so...
I mean, a lot of people say that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is the best Spider-Man.
I mean, they're allowed to be wrong, but...
Until it hits a point, like, I think Spider-Man 2 is where everybody's like, okay, yeah, now it's not a good Spider-Man.
You're talking about the one we have currently, or the one back then?
The one back then.
Oh, okay.
The Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire.
Okay. Well, apparently all of the Spider-Mans are going to be in the next one, so that's going to be a question.
I'm excited about that. I'm gonna see how that is. I think it's gonna be awesome.
You can go back, actually, on this podcast, anybody listening, and we actually did a whole podcast on that, and the title, because I am super clever, was Pulling the Threads on all the Spider-Man 3 rumors, because I'm cheesy as fuck. I gotta say, though, as much as I like Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and I do, like, I think Tom Holland's great, as far as, like, the Spider-Man side of things goes, I'm much more excited about Venom 2. I really, like, Venom 2 looks really good. I'm a sucker for Woody Harrelson
Is
playing
Venom
a
now
psychopath.
part of the Marvel Universe?
This is the thing, right? Because you've got the Sony Venom verse, which is going to have Venom, and it's going to have Morbius, and it's going to have what's the other one? Kraven the Hunter. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently,
we're starting to dig like into the barrel of Marvel characters.
I was gonna say, like, you can have like an entire Marvel universe that happens to have Spider-Man in it, or you can be the company that owns Spider-Man but has to loan them to the other guys. So we do the entire Spider-Man universe mostly without Spider-Man. I'm like I say, I'm a sucker for Woody Harrelson playing a psychopath. That's just going to be good. They've made the decision to take out the weird hair that was in the Venom
No, what I
scene.
meant by that is like you're driving into the barrel of Marvel characters. Can anybody off the street tell me who Kraven the Hunter is? I know who he is, but
I mean, you could say that for a lot of the Marvel characters that have come up before the MCU was a thing. Like, I didn't know who the hell Black Panther was before they decided to make him part of the MCU. Ant-Man or anything like that? Like, no.
Those are even if you were interested in comics at a cursory glance, you could get those people. I would still call that maybe not the very top layer, but the top layers of characters.
Okay.
When you start getting into like Kraven the Hunter, especially as a villain, you're like, okay. Like we're on
apparently it's going to be Jason Momoa. So
we're on the same level as like the Polka Dot Man for DC. Like, who the fuck is this guy?
Polka Dot Man was good.
He was, but did you know who the fuck he was before this?
He's the creepy ass dude with mom issues for sure.
He shoots polka dots, and everybody's like, that's when you're like, okay, it was like the 90s. We needed more bad guys, and fucking a guy who shoots polka dots. That's
okay. But think about this though, right? Like, we're thinking in context. If Batman wasn't a thing, and somebody just came to you and said, we're going to dress this guy like a bat, what do you think?
That's true.
Like, any of these other characters only are okay in our heads because they already exist in our heads. Like, I know that's kind of redundant what I just said, right? But, like, Spider-Man. You're going to take a young kid, you're going to put him in a friggin' red spandex outfit, you're going to get him to squirt goo out of his hands, and that's going to be one of the most popular characters in our company. And it's only okay in your head because Spider-Man already exists in your head. Like, I'm sure there's some people out there for whom Kraven the Hunter already exists in their head. So it's like...
Oh, no. Like I said, I know, but I'm just saying we're digging... I'm not saying we're hitting the bottom of the barrel. I'm just saying we're digging a little deeper into ones that are like, okay, well, who the fuck is this guy?
But also, that's a good thing, though, right? Because look at the people at the top shelf, right? Like, because they're the top shelf, everybody wants to do that particular character. That's why we have 7 different reiterations of Batman. You avoid that by digging deeper, by digging into the characters that nobody knows. That's how the MCU happened, because they didn't dig up, but they took all these characters that they had to use because they couldn't use the X-Men, they couldn't use Fantastic Four, they couldn't use, like, Deadpool and whoever else. They couldn't use Spider-Man. Like, the characters that we have in the MCU now are like, okay, here's who we've got. Let's make it good. So, I'm kind of down with it. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, I'm not complaining about it. I find it amazing.
Like, I didn't know Morbius was a thing.
I can tell you, my parents who are now Marvel people, but are only Marvel people based on the comics, on the movies, are calling me and be like, wait, who is this guy?
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, we'll see. Because he could be the guy in the comics and he could be not.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I hate to throw it back to wrestling, but it's the laziest example in the world. Like, if I know somebody, like, is coming to WWE soon from the indies, I go to Jake, or I go to, our friend Guapo. When Ember Moon was coming to WWE, I'm like, Guapo, who's this Athena chick? And all he had to do was come back to me with, well, she's awesome, and she does a stunner from the top rope. I'm like, cool, that's enough for me to latch onto. Let's see what she does.
Did she continue to do the stunner from the top rope?
Yeah, she does the Eclipse.
Okay, all right.
She went back to NXT, So that was a thing.
I know she did. So then they were using her properly. But
Yeah.
wrestling talk aside,
they teamed her up with my girl Shotzi, and then they put Shotzi to the main roster, broke up that tag team, and put Shotzi Blackheart with somebody else because main roster. Anyways, I'm not going to talk much about wrestling because there's going to be a lot of wrestling on this channel this week. Just saying. But yeah, we spun all the way off the path there, but I want them to do all kinds of weird and wacky characters that I've never heard of, because apparently anybody who knows anything about comics is super excited about Kang the Conqueror being a thing. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what I wanted, though, and everybody laughed at me.
He's I feel like a Thanos level, like,
yeah.
If they're like, okay, Phase 4 is now the beginning of, like, Phase 4 is now is like Phase 1A or something, where it's like the beginning of the next rollout of climbing up to the big baddie, and Kang's gonna be it. I would think Kang is a Thanos level. People could argue wrong,
and see that's gonna.
But at some point, you're gonna have to milk it more, depending on how long they're making the universe, because there's only so many believable, like, big bads, like Thanos, like Kang, like
Galactus.
Another one. I mean, Galactus is going to be one at some point.
Mephisto.
But that's going to be like
Nightmare.
Yeah.
But I mean, if that's the case, though, and I'll take your word.
Nightmare's going to be a one-shot villain for Doctor Strange. I'm talking about fucking Avengers Assemble. We need all the muscle we can get. Level threat.
And see, the thing is that I hope, sort of, and this is going to sound sacrilegious, I hope that, I mean, the Avengers will be back. Let's be real. But I hope that specifically Phase 4, like, you can bring it back around when they get to Phase 5, right? But I hope the theory of Phase 4 is sort of like the post-Avengers MCU. Because you've got other people there, like, you've got the Guardians, which are now different because Star-Lord's involved, and the whole joke is like, that Thor is now involved with as well. So now the whole joke is it's the Asgardians of the galaxy. But you've got them as a team that by themselves are a team. We are getting ready to do the Fantastic Four. We know the X-Men are coming eventually. So, like, we have these other team elements out there. So I think you could go for at least whatever you want to call one phase worth of movies without having the quote-unquote Avengers core team having to be there. Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be another big, like, Avengers thing. That's what I'm saying. What would the big bad be to be like your Endgame, where it's like we're bringing fucking everybody.
Yeah. Like it's weird to use Fox as the example, right?
I was about to say, is Kang the Conqueror like we need to bring everybody, or is he like, is he like the Loki for the first Avengers movie, where he's just the opening act for, like, Thanos being like, all right, I'll do it myself.
Yeah, or because he apparently exists in, like, multiple realities and there's multiple versions of him out there, do they knock off, like, one version, like the super casual version that we just met on the show, and then he dies, and the next reincarnation to come out of him is, like, Galactus level whatever. Mm-hmm. The next version, like, flicks them away completely. And I'm taking your word for it because I'm not familiar, but, like, if he has as big a deal as that, it only sort of reinforces my opinion that maybe introducing him as, like, this super casual, like, don't give a single fuck character was a bit of a miss for me. That's all. Like, I'm not taking the piss. We're gonna see where it goes. Like, it was obviously the cliffhanger.
Well, and he talks about at the end that there were some versions of him that were not fucking good, and he even says, "I have many names."
Yeah, because basically the idea that I walked away from is, like, there was a version of him from every reality, and, like, all of them led their reality's army in, like, the battle of realities.
And some of them were benevolent, and some of them were like, yeah, this is shit, but this is how we keep the world going, and some of them were like, fuck everyone.
Yeah, well, it's like they referred to, and this was not anything that I found. This was, again, me watching Emergency Awesome. Everybody should watch Emergency Awesome. They referred to Scarlet Witch as a Nexus character,
Mm-hmm.
because not all realities have all characters, but if you're a Nexus character, there's a version of you in every reality. I will say selfishly, because it would have been funny, I wanted the reveal to be that because there were so many versions of Loki, like in the dump, as I'm calling it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted the guy running in charge of the entire timeline to be like the ultimate Loki that slaughtered 1,000 other Lokis, and just have and it would be actually making fun of the whole like Marvel same versus same at the end of the movie type thing, just like Tom Hiddleston fighting himself, because at least that would be like the whole show has basically been him fighting like worse versions of himself, doing all the introspective looking, and I'm going to be a better character, blah blah blah, right? So if the final bad is like the ultimate version of himself, the symbolism of that would have worked, but nobody else that I've spoken to likes that idea.
I'm not gonna lie and say I wish there was maybe maybe not an animated series, maybe like a small comic that they like put out, where it was like we find out how, like maybe it's like a short series, like I don't know, like a month series or something like that, where we find out little background stories about all those other Lokis and how they got there. Like
Alligator Loki?
Like Alligator Loki. I assume that in Alligator Loki's world, because there is a thing where Thor is a frog.
Yep.
But since Loki's adopted, it's just Loki the alligator with a bunch of frogs as guardians, and he doesn't know he's adopted.
Oh no.
Is my canon for
I'm glad you
Loki.
brought up Thor, because here's one little thing that I do want to see, because we do know that the shows are supposed to like tap back into the movies and whatever. We've got Thor: Love and Thunder coming out, which I'm looking forward to for not the same reasons as other people, but it's fine. I really want them to reach a point in that movie where it's like, okay, you've got Valkyrie, you've got Lady Thor, you've got Thor. Whatever I don't even know what they're fighting. Apparently it's something. Apparently Gore the God Butcher is there. They're gonna have Zeus in there for a little bit, from what I hear. But whatever they're fighting, I want it to be something so like bad and terrible and heinous. Like Thor finally like breaks through reality. It's like we're not enough. This isn't enough. We need to reassemble the Revengers from Thor Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I need to find my brother. He like reaches through like time and space to get like, bring me back Loki. And you get some portal or some sort of like walkway thing or whatever, and Sylvie steps out, and there's that half second where like everybody's confused, and she just sort of has all right, we got a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Whatever. No, Alligator Loki pops out.
Even that is
like,
no, but if you think about like, we can have all the conversations we can.
Can we have a moment though to just acknowledge the old Loki and how, even though he was only really a prevalent thing in like his big moment was in like one episode, how fucking awesome that was.
Yep.
Where he's like, I'm the greatest illusionist ever. And he like fucking builds Asgard out of nothing to destroy the Goliath.
Let's just take
and then when it goes to kill him, he's just like maniacally laughing because his whole life has been a villain.
Glorious purpose!
His whole life he's been a fucking villain, and he finally gets to be the hero, and he dies doing it.
Yeah. Just in general, and I hate to be super generic like this, visually, this show was fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not really fair to say that coming off of Falcon and Winter Soldier, which was much more grounded, much more Earth-based. It wasn't as like visually stunning, but I would say slightly better than WandaVision, honestly, just with the amount of
I would put it on par.
I think because they had to go to so many.
WandaVision a little bit better, but that's because I will say that I had WandaVision on like a bar of like, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this at all, and then it ended up being really good.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think because they had to create so many different world, like basically in WandaVision you were like either in the Hex or you were in the real world, whereas here they were like in different times, in different places, they went to that one planet that was like in the middle. Oh, that's what we didn't talk about. the whole idea that like Sylvie was able to hide on the timeline for so long because she always hung out where there was about to be a disaster, so she couldn't change anything about the timeline. I thought that was brilliant.
Like, there wasn't a branch because like everybody's gonna die anyway. So as long as you don't like, I don't know, make someone live that's supposed to die.
I thought that was brilliant. I did not see that coming. Like, we're going back several episodes now, but I got to give a little shout out to that because I thought that was great. Owen Wilson as Mobius, just being dorky Owen Wilson was great. And the other chick that sort of ran the TVA was fine. She got annoying towards the end to me because the people that she follows clearly like got revealed to be bullshit, and she like stuck to it anyway.
She was like, we're just gonna keep doing it.
So that's
Shall we
about
move
it.
on to What If? Because I mean, we're like probably an hour into recording.
I mean, I don't have as much to say about What If. We've got one episode in the can so far. I'll start with the boring shit first, whereas with Loki I saved it for last. I like the animation style, if that counts for anything. I think the animation style
I like
looks
the
really
animation style. This specific episode, I'll go ahead and tell you, I think Captain Carter was the least interesting thing about the episode.
Right.
Because I feel like everything about her, not everything about her, but like a lot of the stuff, like when she gets the costume and when she gets the shield and stuff, I feel like it's forced. Can I paint you a picture of
Absolutely.
what that probably, and we know it's not how the super soldier serum works, but how I wanted it to work for this.
All right.
Because Steve Rogers, skinny dude who just wants to serve his country. That's all he wants to do. He wants to be a good soldier. He wants to fight for America, and he's just an all-around fucking great guy. And scientist tells him, I could do that for you, and this stuff, it's going to make you the best version of you. It's going to enhance everything you've already got that's good. And if you're shitty, then it enhances everything that's shitty. So with Carter, what I wanted, instead of like essentially female Captain America and we stick a British flag on her and all that shit, and they like hand her the shield because Captain America has a shield. What I really wanted is that her big qualities is that she's like this strategist. And so what I wanted, I mean, I think it should like enhance your strength and everything, but I don't think she should have become this like big super soldier. I think she should have it should have enhanced, like made her more intelligent and everything.
Yeah,
Like,
I
feel
can
like
see that.
those were the
I hadn't
good
thought
points
about
of her.
I hadn't thought about that, if I'm completely honest with you. But no, that makes sense.
That's what I want. That's what I think I wanted. And like when it really turned me off when they're like, when Howard Stark shows up and like, here, I got you a present. Here's, your fucking soldier outfit, and here's a shield. Whereas when Steve Rogers got the shield, I know you weren't a huge fan of the first Captain America movie.
Not really.
But when Steve Rogers gets the shield, it's like on a bottom shelf underneath all the other shit that Howard Stark is showing him. And he picks the shield because he wants to protect. I feel like it symbolizes he wants to protect people, as opposed to here's this fucking gun. He's not in this war to like fucking, all the glory and everything. He wants to protect people, which is what the shield represents.
I think you've hit on something there that I was going to hit on in a much more general way. The problem with this, and I can see it going
It's all like, well, I mean, Captain America has this, so she gets this.
And the thing is, it's all force-fed to you, is the problem. Because what they're trying to do is, I don't know how long Captain America, the first Avenger, is, but it's a feature-length movie.
Yeah.
And they're trying to force it into, 35 minutes?
Something like that, yeah.
So I think they basically speedballed through the beats of the story. The narrator took us right to the point of Steve Rogers being in the machine already, whereas even though, do I like the character of Captain America in general? No. Anybody that listens to this podcast knows that. But if you look at the story in general, if I look at it objectively, at least half of his story is his character developing and him proving himself to the people around him to even get into that machine in the first place. So by fast forwarding our right to him sitting in the machine, like, you didn't have there was no heart in the episode. If that is that a good way to sum it up? Like, we skip past all the heart and all the story. We maintain.
Well, and I feel like they just make it her identity as, okay, she's Captain America, but female and British. Whereas I feel like she wouldn't have gone that way. And like I said, it's also me making the super soldier serum something that within the Marvel Cinematic Universe it's not. I mean, the super soldier serum it makes you physically stronger. But I want it to be like a thing that it's like, it does make you physically stronger in a way, but what I want is that it takes everything that's good about you and makes it like that much good. And
Well,
it
I
takes
think it kind
everything
of
that's
implied-
shitty about you.
I think they kind of implied it in Falcon and the Winter Soldier that it does enhance your positives and your negatives, because it took what's his name, the Patriot or whatever, and made him a friggin' psychopath.
Yeah.
So I think you've got a lot of validity in that statement. I don't think you're fabricating that as much as you think you are.
Okay.
But
That's kind of what I wanted. And they could have still had the element of, and it definitely would have been a thing of during that era where it's like, Jesus, now I have this fucking woman that's like fucking useless because women didn't fight on the front lines. They didn't do much. If you were either a nurse, a driver, or a typist kind of thing when it came to the war effort, especially when it came to like strategizing. So I think it would have been a very interesting moment to have her be like, they're all planning like, okay, well, here's where this base is, and they're like, okay.
Well, she
we're
did get
gonna
that
do
moment
this,
near
and
the end
she's
of the
like,
episode where she got to like kick her former superior out of the room the same way he had done. I will say this, right? And
she could have still been a fighter, but
I will say this, right?
I felt the shield and the costume were super like forced.
I think them making a wink, because he did say like, hey, this was what we were supposed to give you to do those USO shows.
USO shows.
I think they needed to pay like a wink and a nod to that being a part of the movie without actually doing it, because A, there's no time in the episode to do it, and B, it's stupid, kind of. But I think they still want that wink and that nod in there. I will say, reflective of the time and all that sort of thing, every single dude in the whole friggin' show other than Steve Rogers is a sexist dickhead, right?
Yes,
but
even Howard Stark.
But I think Howard Stark,
who is supposed to be her ally,
who I think is her ally,
still is just, he is, but he's also like a horn dog.
I think he's that friend that puts an arm around your shoulder and says, "You did a really good job there, sweet cheeks."
Yeah, that one.
Because I don't think he's
like the least shitty of the bad guys.
Yeah, like, I don't think he's an asshole. Like, I think rather than being an actual asshole, he is the guy that's there. Okay,
he is a product of the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Product of the times, right? But as much as I acknowledge that every dude in the show is a sexist because that's the time that we were in, but B, they're gonna amp that up to 11 so that she can get all her chirpy comebacks in. I don't mind that at all. Where I did get offended a little bit, and this is me sticking up for her character and all the female fans out there, I do think it was a bit shitty to have her recreate where Captain America went to save Bucky and all them, and he did successfully in the movie. The fact that when she went to save Bucky and all them and did it successfully, she ultimately has to get saved by Steve at the end. So if there's ever going to be somebody who's going to come at me with a feminist argument, they're like, oh my god, we finally have a female hero and she had to be saved by a man, and I'm like, that's the argument that I would almost never make, but in this case, absolutely true. And like, you could have just let her do the save. You could have let her have that moment rather than, oh, what did the guy say is like, oh, now we got fighting dames and we got a fighting Buick or some ridiculous car reference. Also,
so like I said, she's the least interesting thing about
Yeah.
the episode. Everyone else, I feel like, has a way more interesting arc. I like the idea that, like, Steve Rogers is the first Iron Man.
Yes, for sure. I like... What's... Okay,
and that they're doing it with, like, the Tesseract.
Which is true, and, again, I gotta give credit to other people because I didn't figure this out. We figure out later on, if you follow the entire story arc of Tony Stark, and how he created the arc reactor from his dad's work, and his dad's work was on the Tesseract. So basically, Tony Stark had made himself a Tesseract. That's what the arc reactor was. I think that's a cool callback. I think also Peggy and him sitting having drinks somewhere, and she basically tells him, like, you're what's special, not the suit. Like, it's the person inside the suit that matters.
Yes.
If you go back to the first Spider-Man that has Iron Man in it, he gives that same speech to Spider-Man, and I thought there's a really cool mirror image there. I really did like, if you're nothing without the suit, you shouldn't have it, and then like that's about as close to, hey, it's not the suit that matters, it's the guy inside it.
Steve Rogers, again, even in the one where, like, she's Captain America right now, the more interesting thing.
Okay, yeah, for sure. No, I get that. I think it's
this dude and I, because then in this, reality of what does Tony become? Because does he still do it based on, like, oh, I've heard about Steve Rogers and blah, 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 blah. Does he not become Iron Man? Because, or in the other Iron Man movies, he talks about, like, yeah, my old man wouldn't shut up about you, kind of thing, and so he almost, like, resents Captain America a little bit.
I think that would still be the case, just for a different reason. I think he'd be here. I think because you haven't replaced one character like with. I
don't think it would replace him, but I wonder what then Tony Stark is.
See, that's an interesting one, because Tony Stark would still be hearing stories about Steve Rogers. They would just be in a different context. And he'd be hearing the old Steve Rogers stories about Captain Carter instead. Because what they've done here with the What If is they haven't replaced one Captain America with another. They've made both of them heroes at the same time. Whereas Agent Carter went on to be in a failing TV show in the MCU reality.
And, made S.H.I.E.L.D.
And made S.H.I.E.L.D. But also had a failing TV show. Like, they haven't gone one for one. They've moved Steve over and put it in so maybe Tony would be twice as bitter. Maybe Tony would look at the preliminary Iron Man, because the Iron Man suit in this is basically the Ironmonger or the Mach 1.
The first Iron Man suit.
Yeah, because it just glance at it, it's the Mach 1. So his dad made the Mach 1, so maybe he became an even more intense arms dealer. So when Buddy kidnaps him and puts him in the field, he's had to build himself an even bigger... Like, maybe he becomes, like, the Iron Monster because he's so bitter he becomes a villain.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's what the What If stuff is supposed to... Like, it's... Because they're... the What Ifs are a comic series, sort of.
Yeah.
Where they just take a premise and just roll with it.
And they're all,
like,
and
not canon.
Each issue is a one-off, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the rumor that I've heard, and I don't know whether this is true or not. The show is going to start off the same way, but eventually they're going to take one sort of, like, altered character from every reality, and there's something coming up later, like a couple seasons down the line, like, it's only being speculated. Apparently there's eventually going to be a Guardians of the Multiverse thing. I don't know whether it's going to be a show or a movie or whatever, but it's going to be like alternate Tony Stark, and it's going to be like demon friggin' Doctor Strange and all these other types of things. I do think it's kind of cool though, because obviously Steve Rogers became Iron Man, but Steve Rogers also became Bucky.
Mm-hmm.
Because Bucky didn't fall from the train. He made the joke about, hey, you almost ripped my arm off, which I thought was cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually Steve Rogers.
Yeah, so then there's no Winter Soldier. See, I thought so he lives at that point. I thought Steve Rogers dies at that point, and then he becomes the Winter Soldier.
See, I would love it, and this is almost traipsing into Cyborg territory.
Making the good guy into, like, a fucking assassin.
No, I was thinking more along the lines of friggin' Cyborg from the DC side of things, where it's like,
Oh yeah.
he fell down, but he fell down in the suit, so the suit was probably still fine. But like they already sort of set the table for it because he does get shot, which is why he couldn't go into the tank thing at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, he's walking around with a cane unless he's in the thing, which actually is kind of like Rhodey in our actual reality because he fell out of the sky and broke his spine, but he's still War Machine. So that I didn't think of that until just now. So it's a full body prosthetic pretty much. So basically, if he falls down the thing and like loses half of his body, basically literal like Steve Rogers Cyborg type character, but they didn't do that. They just like hung him up in Red Skull's thing. We haven't even mentioned Red Skull yet.
Yeah.
Who was like the main villain.
Had to, and I haven't looked it up yet.
Yeah.
I may go look it up real quick while we're do some wiki goofoo.
There you go. I love that that's a thing now, by the way.
How Red Skull became Red Skull.
Mm.
Was it a thing where did he get the serum in the movie somehow? And
I think they tried to replicate.
I
I think they tried to replicate it. I think they tried to replicate it.
It's been so long since I've seen the Captain America.
But I still think
the first
like
Avengers.
The replacement at the end was a bit shit. Like, the old thing was him putting Hydra together and harnessing the full strength of the Tesseract and all that sort of thing.
And I mean, he basically, like...
He brought in Starro.
Brought in an old gods Cthulhu-esque monster.
But, like, all you saw was tentacles. It's just like, here, ominoustentaclethreat.com. I don't know.
He tested a version of it on himself, and it made him hideously disfigured.
Whereas all he really did was just put on a rubber mask that was like his regular mask. It's like Joker in Batman '89, where it's like, no, the white face is his real face, and the pale, pasty-colored face is what he has to put on. But yeah, no, I thought his final like weapon was a bit lame, if I'm honest. When he says, "Oh, I'm gonna have my final champion," and like the last thing you talk about, like who is whose champion, was like when you see Thor and Hulk in the what's the trash planet? I can't think of it right now.
I know what you're talking about. Continue.
Sakaar.
Yeah.
So when he says, "Oh, I'm going to bring forth my champion," I thought he was like, for a second, I thought he was going to be bringing in like some evil version of the Hulk to come in and fight. And then...
wrong time era.
Yeah,
He like basically summons like a Cthulhu monster from space.
Yeah, but you know what? It's like watching The Mist, where you never actually see the monsters. All you see is like an arm or a leg, and I'm like, that's so lame. I'm sorry.
Well, and I guess they tried to like almost emulate the Captain America taking the bomb, or not Captain America, the Iron Man taking the bomb into the like. So she pushes it back into the portal, and then the portal goes away. And that's her sacrifice. But then, okay, I'm gonna get to that in a second. Wouldn't she have died in space? I mean, I know she's a super soldier, but she still has to breathe.
The implication, I actually read a little bit about this. The portal that he created wasn't directly to space. It was through time and space.
Well, that makes no sense because they're using the Tesseract to do it.
She definitely just shows up at another place on Earth because eventually
when
you see her come
does.
But here's my thing though, and I wanted to mention this as well. Apparently, the reason they didn't call her Captain Britain, which is
there's an actual character.
There's an actual character called Captain Britain who is associated with the Black Knight and like Arthurian like legends and whatever, and like literal like sword in the stone shit exists in the MCU, and that's the only reason they had her randomly pull out a sword at the ending fight, and I'm just like, because like again, like Captain America got the super soldier serum and had his shield, and that was enough. Like, why did you, just because she's female, and I'm really sticking up for the ladies here, so people be proud of me for once. Like, why are you saying that she got the super soldier serum and needed the shield and more? Like, I think that they really
And I mean, like I said, they just made her Captain America, and I feel like that was a waste, because I feel like the shield was forced. I feel like the shield was like, well, I mean, she gets a shield, and the suit was forced. Like, I wanted it to be her to be something different, like I said, and it probably wouldn't have been as interesting to do my version. And she could have still fought, but I think it's just would have been different.
You want her to be like the super soldier version of like Professor Hulk.
Yeah, or like the super soldier version of like Black Widow, because she's an agent.
That's fair. That's fair.
Where it's like more covert stuff.
So her
but
version.
Then we don't get Steve Rogers as Iron Man, so you know.
That's true. So her version of the sacrifice does not put her in the ice. It puts her through a portal through time and space, and she comes out basically in the beginning scene of the Avengers through that portal, because now they have.
It looks like she comes out through the beginning episode, the beginning of the Thor movie. Because no, I guess that's not true. I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Is it the first Avengers movie?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right, because S.H.I.E.L.D. is messing with the portal, and that's when Loki shows up and starts taking over.
And literally Samuel L. Jackson says, put down the spear, in the exact same tone that he says, put down the sword.
Mm-hmm.
So what really throws it here now is Loki, even if this show is connected to the live shows, which we don't know if it is or not, Loki doesn't disappear from that Avengers movie until the end. Right? So he should have still come through that portal at the beginning. So in this reality, where's Loki?
Well, I think that's the thing of what if.
Right. Unless she turns into
one-off.
If Agent Carter's side effect of the super soldier serum and time and space travel is she also becomes the god of mischief, I might tap out. So I will say, and I think we're sort of going to say the same thing. This show introduced us this episode introduced us to how the episodes are going to go, which I think is very, very positive. Mm-hmm. But this episode, in its content, was probably not the greatest one to start with. Is all I'm going to say, because they built it around Peggy Carter, and as you say, Steve Rogers was still the better character. Even the villain, like Red Skull is just a cartoon drawing of a bad guy. But even his ultimate weapon was like random tentacle chaos. Yay! So the only enjoyment you really get from it is, oh, that's the beat from such and such. And I think it's going to get turned right on its head the following week, just because I happen to know the following week is a lot more fun, and a lot more fun a concept anyway, is what if Black Panther was Star-Lord?
That one will be interesting, I think.
Because that's basically going to be T'Challa being adopted by Yondu.
And it's also
Chadwick Boseman's last thing.
Last part of Chadwick Boseman.
That's rough.
That one's going to be a rough one. Yep.
I'm sure it's going to be amazing. I really don't know what the next Black Panther is going to be. Like, there's been speculation that somehow they're going to side shift the title over to Shuri, which I have no problem with. They're not going to recast T'Challa. They're going to find some respectful way to let the people know that character is passed on, etc. They're not going to CGI him like they did with Princess Leia. I think they're going to go out of their way to treat it with.
What? Sorry, I'm looking at the poster for What If.
Yes.
And there's a What If like zombies version.
Oh, I know.
Of the comics.
I know. As soon as somebody said one of the What If things is zombies, I'm like, yes, 100% yes.
Because I think, and I don't know that they'll do it on this one, I believe there is a What If one with zombies, and Deadpool is the only one that lives. He kills literally everybody else.
Isn't there literally a comic called Deadpool Kills the MCU?
Does everyone?
The Marvel
yes.
Universe?
He does.
Yeah.
And then he jumps out into what is, I guess, our universe.
Nice. And gets reincarnated as Ryan Reynolds?
Speaking of Ryan Reynolds, I mean, not Marvel related at all, but I heard, what's the one he's in, where he's like an NPC?
Free Guy?
New guy?
Free Guy?
I've heard it's been getting really good reviews. I kind of want to go see it. I was very questionable about it.
I'm kind of mixed on it, honestly, because...
Did you see it?
No. The concept of it is not necessarily a new concept. It's like, okay, let's put real human qualities to these video game characters. I have a built-in trust to anything Ryan Reynolds does at this point. The commercial itself does nothing to get me any more excited than somebody telling me what it's about and telling me Ryan Reynolds is in it. So I don't know. It feels a bit recycled, so it feels like I'd just be going for the Ryan Reynolds show, which is fine.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, sounds good to me.
I was going to say, we started this off with what I've seen in the past little while. What have you seen in the past little while?
Not much.
Not much? Not much worth talking about anyway? Other than Suicide Squad?
Sorry, I'm looking at Phase 4. What is all moved up for Phase 4?
Yeah, I think the next one's the Eternals.
It's let's see. Black Widow, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is next.
Oh, okay.
Then the Eternals. Then Spider-Man No Way Home. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Thor Love and Thunder. Black Panther Wakanda Forever. The Marvels, which features
Captain Marvel and Ms. Marvel.
Captain Marvel and Ms. Marvel. Ant-Man and the Wasp and Quantum Mania. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Fantastic Four, and Blade.
Yeah. Kind of looking forward to Blade, not gonna lie.
We'll see how it is.
Everybody's like, oh, if Sony and Marvel are gonna cross over, obviously it's gonna be with Venom and Spider-Man. I'm like, nah, you got Morbius and you got Blade. Just let the vampires fight. Like, I'd be down for that. I know nobody else would be, but...
Yeah. And then TV show-wise, we've got, after What If, and then it looks like there's a season 2 of What If. It looks like Hawkeye is after this, the TV show Hawkeye. Ms. Marvel, which is Kamala Khan.
I was going to say, you're going to have to see Black Panther at the very least before Hawkeye.
Yeah. Moon Knight, She-Hulk, The Secret Invasion, which is basically the story of the Skrulls trying to invade Earth. Ironheart, which is the
chick Iron Man.
Yes. Armor Wars.
Armor Wars looks sick. I'm excited about that.
And I Am Groot. Don't know what this one is. I Am Groot features everyone's favorite baby tree in a series of original shorts coming to Disney Plus.
Oh, if they're just going to be shorts, then cool. Apparently, we're also at some point I don't think it's even going to be canon.
A Guardians of the Galaxy holiday
Christmas.
special.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was going to say.
So I mean, we're totally parroting Star Wars at this point.
I mean, Guardians is kind of like better Star Wars.
No Avengers films, no Captain America films.
I don't think there is.
In Phase 4.
Yeah, I don't think there is a gigantic team up in Phase 4.
Will not have any Stan Lee cameos due to his death in 2018.
Yeah. Well, that's sad. Between talking about that and talking about Chadwick Boseman being on next week's episode of What If.
All right, well, let's, go ahead and end it on a sad note.
I was going to say, way to go, Kristen.
Yeah.
I don't know. When we talked a couple weeks ago, I wanted to kind of mention, like, we're getting more characters from the Netflix universe coming over. Supposedly, Spider-Man, one of the next Spider-Men is going to have Kingpin, Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin from Daredevil. Daredevil himself is coming over for Spider-Man and for She-Hulk, which is kind of cool. Punisher is gonna apparently be somehow involved with the Moon Knight saga.
Okay.
John Bernthal as Punisher is great, so that makes me happy. Supposedly, after Blade, which means we're going way far in the future now, we may see some sort of collaborative thing with John Bernthal's Punisher, Mahershala Ali's Blade, and supposedly Norman Reedus's Ghost Rider. So you put those three together in a show or a movie, I'm in. big fan of all three actors, so like let's get like all the like because where DC has Marvel beaten, we talked about it with Suicide Squad earlier, is Marvel's like happy, like let's get the team together, like we're all gonna do it all for one for all. Like we need a few more gritty, I don't give a single fuck, let's get this shit done characters. And I think if you bring back Punisher, you have some iteration of Ghost Rider and Blade, you're gonna get those dark hero, anti-hero, whatever category you want to put them in. I think throwing in a couple of characters like that would balance out the MCU a little bit, because that's really the only place where I can say the DC is up on Marvel, which isn't saying very much. Anyways, I think that's the end of that.
Yep. I think that's all we got.
I think that is all we've got. Well, we've talked for quite a while, but also it's been quite a while between episodes of FLIX, so I think that balances out. Maybe in 2 weeks we do the next 2 episodes of What If. We can tentatively put that on the schedule before life slaps us in the face.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, because I'm way too fucking busy next weekend. Next time, as much as I give Kristen a hard time, it's not always her fault. Next week, it's entirely me saying I'm not doing any podcast recording on the weekend. There's way too much wrestling happening next weekend. Anyways, Kristen, tell them where to find you.
Here, mostly. I mean,
Go,
let's be honest.
Go bug her on at Black Cat Feline just because.
On Twitter, Instagram, but mostly here.
You can find her here. So
I mean, let's be honest. Where most people find me nowadays is here.
Okay, come on, like your sign-offs used to be, hey, come find me at Black Cat Feline. I tweet sometimes. Don't listen to Spaz. He's a dick. I tweet you if you tweet back.
Let's be honest.
You don't.
You find me here.
It's true. Well, we're happy to have you. There's that.
Thank you.
I'm
happy to be doing, just this one podcast, because then it's, a lot off my plate, whereas I used to do, like, at least 2 and a video series, and that was
a lot of work.
A lot of editing.
And I mean,
that was when I was younger and had more energy.
Yeah, and more fucks to give.
Yes.
I mean, with me, it's pretty much like, let's make sure the recorder's working, hit record, whatever happens, happens.
And also, yes, I don't have to do any of that, because unlike Spaz, who is just like, whatever, it's good enough,
Thanks.
Like to put sorry, those are your words, not mine.
It's true. It's true.
Spaz, I'd be like, Spaz, you could do like this, and this with your editing. He's like, I'm not doing any of that.
Yeah, no. Remember the brief period of time where we were doing like live
I was
shit?
proud of Spaz when he started editing the beginning and ends of videos.
Hey, think back in the day when you, me, and Guapo were actually doing like YouTube live shit.
I know.
Remember Google Hangouts?
Woo! Yep.
Anyways, I think I've rambled quite long enough.
Rest.
I've been, you know where to find me. I've been Spaz. She's been Kristen. Hey, I even got it right. This has been FLIX.
You paused.
Subscribe.
You thought you were gonna fuck up.
Jesus Christ. Subscribe up there. Talk down there. Start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Subscribe. All that kind. You just fucked me right up there.
Yeah, you did fuck up.
Podcast is over, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.